presidency of the United States. He'd like to talk to you. I said, fine, send him in, come on. And Jimmy Carter came in, see? And he said, my name is Jimmy Carter. And I said, I'm Norman Rales, how do you do, sir? And he said, I'm thinking of running for the presidency of the United States. I said, well, tell me what you want to do for the United States, Mr. Carter. And he said, you know, I'm a former governor of the state of Georgia, so I have some. I said, I didn't know that, Mr. Carter, I really didn't. He said, and I went to school right here, close by to Washington in Annapolis, and I'm a graduate of the Naval Academy. I said, I didn't know that either, Mr. Carter. He said, call me Jimmy. I said, okay, Jimmy. And we talked for about a half hour. And when we finished, I said, candidly, Jimmy, I haven't decided who I'm going to back for the nomination for the presidency. And I reached into my pocket and I had one of those $1 big red pens, and it had my name on it, Norman R. Rales. And I used to give them out once in a while. And I reached into my pocket and I said, when I realize what I'm going to do, I'll let you know, Jimmy. I said, in the meantime, I'm going to give you this pen. And if you stroke this the right way, not only will you be nominated for the Democratic Party, you'll be the President of the United States. Well, he laughed and I laughed. We shook hands and he left. And lo and behold, a year later, I came home from work. At that time, they were printing the Washington Star, and on the front page, big as I'm doing now, President-elect Jimmy Carter vacationing in Sea Island, Georgia, before the inauguration 2 weeks hence. And the pen's open in his mouth, and it says, Norman R. Rales. Well, I let out a scream, and my wife come running in. She said, what happened? I said, Ruth, take a look at that picture. And there was Jimmy Carter, went on Newsweek the following week, all over the world in the magazine.
Oh, that's funny.
Now, I was known then in Washington as a fellow with the good luck pen. And Fritz Mondale, who was the vice president, and Joan Mondale, they would drive me crazy. They wanted a pen. Give me a good luck pen. And, you know, all those people I would go to shows with, you got another good luck pen, Norman. But that really happened.
I have to ask you, did you vote for him?
I voted for him the first time.
Okay.
The second time, I didn't vote for him simply because he had his right-hand man, trying to think of his name. He was a banker, right-hand man from Georgia, who was a banker, had good-sized bank, and Mr. Carter used to use his airplane to fly around everywhere, and some client of the banker's, who he knew, the banker knew for many years, said, I have this check for $200,000. I don't have $200,000 in the bank, but I'll have it in there tomorrow morning. Would you cash the check for me? And he did. See? And next morning, man came in with the money and gave him the money. The newspaper or media picked that up somehow, and before you know it, he was known as cashing a bad check for someone and came before, Mr. President, what are you going to do about your right-hand man? And President Carter fired him. Well, I didn't believe in that. See? This was a man who helped him get elected. This was a man who lived by him and The man really knew he was doing something wrong, but didn't think he was doing something wrong because he knew the man for 20 years. So I didn't vote for Carter the second time around. The man went to trial and was found not guilty, and I was mad as hell at Carter then, see, for doing that. President Truman, unlike Carter, prior to Carter, when his man, Vaughn, they came before Truman and said, your man Vaughn got a refrigerator from General Electric, and they put it in his house. What are you going to do about that, Mr. Truman? Or President Truman? And he rubbed his chin. He said, I know what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to tell him never to do that again. Say, well, those are two different folks, you see. Jimmy Carter, in my opinion, didn't have it, so I didn't vote for him the second time around.
Education was a focus of the Federation from the very beginning. Education of, as far as Jewish history, Jewish culture, right? Is that true of every federation? Is that a basic?
Probably, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you some questions about the community that you may or may not have direct knowledge of. If you don't have direct knowledge of it, we'll just skip it, okay? Because I can perhaps ask some other people about it. Do you have any direct knowledge of the beginnings of the Lifelong Learning Center?
The Learning Center?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I have some passing fancy with it, but not really digging in very much.
Okay, well, we'll just skip over that then. Are you very familiar with the American Jewish Committee and Bill Graunik?
Yeah, I have some passing fancy with that too.
Okay. There was a rash of anti-Semitic incidents in 1988, 1990, and 1993. And one of them, as a matter of fact, was at the Federation. The others were in the community here. And in 1990, Florida was 5th in the country for such incidents. And yet it has the strongest hate crime laws in the country. Do you know why at that particular time those incidents were prevalent? Was there something going on that?
I think the thing that might have been going on was that the Jewish people were moving into the community in abundance, and the Christian people really resented that, and that was a way of them getting back at it as best they could. They thought.
Sometimes people react that way out of fear. Fear of the unknown.
Still is some.
But do things like that still happen from time to time?
No, but they let you know who you are. See?
I see. The Jewish community of South County has supported social causes outside of its federation. I mean, it has its causes within the federation, the agencies there, but it seems like the federation, or certainly the main people in the federation, also support other social causes that are not part of them.
And also support Israel. And
Yes.
a certain amount of money that comes into the Federation is dedicated to Israel.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's like a percentage that just, so when you give to the federation, you know that you're also supporting Israel.
That's right.
Okay. So the Federation has also supported the Daily Bread Food Bank of Palm Beach County and migrant farm workers, and aid to victims of domestic assault, and several medical facilities. Have you had any involvement with any of those?
Well, medical facilities, I was involved with the Boca Raton Hospital.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
to a great extent. Different things we've been able to do there, and I've been a contributor, both financially and hopefully some of the things I say make some sense to them. I'm very friendly with Gloria Drummond. I'm very friendly with the Thomases.
Is Gloria Drummond the mother of the
Yes,
children?
of Boca Raton Hospital. You know how that happened, don't you?
Her children died
Babysitter poisoned them.
accidentally, right?
Pardon?
Accidentally?
Oh, not
Oh,
accidentally.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, not accidentally, but however, there are different concepts of how it happened and what happened. And she tried to get them into a hospital. There was no hospital there. So she started to build a hospital. See?
And the community obviously supported her.
Yep, rightfully so. Wonderful.
Have you been involved in any interfaith efforts or relationships? I know that some of the things that have been achieved through interfaith relationships, particularly through Temple Bethel, which
I'm involved in almost every church in the community. I'm a contributor to all churches, all things for children that I send to them, besides financial money, shirts and different things. Marlin Shirts, which you know I'm involved with the Marlins and one of the owners of the Marlins. And I take them to ball games and have different days for different children there of all faiths, and still do, and will continue till the day I die.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, I like it. I have a lot of fun. You know what it is to take a group of children and march them on the field and let them look at the stands and meet the ball players, and what that does for kids. My God, they never forget that the rest of their lives. Hey? And people did that for me when I was a kid. I liked it, although
Would you say that's your personal philosophy? If you had a personal philosophy, what would it be?
taking care of the children and the elderly and contributing to all of the people. I'm a big contributor to St. Henry's Church. I go there when my wife passed away. We were the first Jewish people they had Mass for. It was wonderful to see those people. And that's what brings everybody together. You see it, and people begin to understand each other. Instead of some of the hearsay that they get that is not correct and not true. Well, you had that same incident here. There's 2 country clubs here, 2 golf courses, big country clubs. One was the hotel, and then there's was the country club in Royal Palm, and the very highfalutin Christian people. And they had, in the minutes, no Jews allowed, no Catholics, and no black. 10 or 12 years ago, the chairman of the board's daughter married a Jewish boy. And unbeknown to the father, educated but ignorant. How come, Mary? You used to love to go to the club. Now we don't see you here anymore. The father talking to the daughter. And she said, Daddy, you know I married a Jewish man, and he's my husband. They won't allow him in there. And he said, how dare they? I'll change those rules. So he called a meeting. And the board of directors said, no, you're not going to change it. You initiated these laws. He said, well, I want to change. They said, no. And he sued every board of directors. Well, now you have Jewish people in the country club. But that's the hard way, see? And these are the things that I can't conceive of what makes people think along those lines, what they do, whatever it is. In my day, when as I said, I wanted to go get a job, you had to fill out your religion. And I would say Hebrew. General Electric says the job's filled. Okay? Alcoa, your job's filled. As soon as they saw Hebrew. Why? I don't know. Highly intelligent people.
Well, I think that ignorance is a big part of it, which is partly why we are doing what we're doing today. We're going
You're
to
right.
educate people.
You're absolutely correct.
What would you personally like to see for the future of the Federation and the Jewish community here in Boca?
I would like to see it keep on flourishing in the manner in which it's flourishing, keep it up, get many charitable people to deliver to the Federation so the Federation can spread out and deliver to the whole community and communities around it so that everybody becomes a recipient of some of the money that comes in there and some of the things that it's capable of doing, such as psychiatry, dentistry we have, different things that people come in to get, even today.
So aside from more of the same to reach more people, is there anything that they're not doing that you would like to see them do?
I like to see.
If you were in,
I like to see
running
them
the show.
quit arguing with each other, but that's a tendency for Jewish people to do.
Well, for all people probably, right?
Yeah, well, but I'd like to see them just continue to make America a better place for everybody to live in. And I'm a prime example of what America offers you if you really want it. Let somebody tell me, forget about being Jewish, these Americans, these, this. I said, you got the wrong guy you're talking to. That's not true. Although we have a situation presently, for some reason, and I think it's obvious that the world don't like us. You either go my way or you go the highway, the guy's saying. If you don't want to do what we want to do, we're going to invade you. We're going to go into Iraq. We don't belong there. We don't belong in these places. But we have that, and what makes us American is we can say that where they can't. See? And I was, several years ago, maybe 10, I was sent on an assignment to Cuba and indoctrinated with that the people will come and give you a slip of paper, get me out of here. Always your answer is, no, I can't do anything for you because you don't know when Mr. Castro gave that guy the paper to nab you. See? And I had a beautiful young ardent communist take me around Cuba. Might have been 30 years old, flew me to Santiago and the different places that I had to go. And I spent a week with him traveling around. And he said, how did you like my Cuba, Mr. Rales? I said, Cuba's beautiful. It's a beautiful country. People are beautiful. They're very, very nice. But his name was David, that's it. I said, David, I want to show you what we have. So I'm going to take you back with me and show you what America is. And he looked at me and he smiled. And he says, you know I can't go back with you. I says, then you don't know what freedom is. You know what that man tells you every day on the television, how good you got it. Maybe you do, but let's see what everybody else does. And he couldn't come back with me. I said, do you know, David, that people leave your country on small rafts and they're eaten by sharks, families, to get out of there to come to America? I said, you're entitled to that. Not according to him, though. See? At any rate, America's the greatest country in the world, the greatest nation in the world. We offer the world so much, and but we don't deserve to invade people if they don't want to see our way of life. I'm hoping that whoever the next president is, he has the wherewithal to negotiate and put deals together for America without fighting. I know if I was president, I'd go right to Venezuela. And I say, Chavez, what do you want? We have things you might want. You have enough oil to keep us going for 50 years. You're sending it to China, you're sending it all over, you could send it right to us. Now, what can we do to work together in a prudent and proper manner that makes these countries better for both of us? Why should Chavez be buying his goods from the Soviet Union or somewhere else when we make the same goods here? And I know what Chavez will say. The first thing I want from you is quit trying to assassinate me. Stop that. See? Well, he's absolutely correct, in my opinion. How do you negotiate if you're going to kill a guy? You got to negotiate in the right manner. Don't always work your way. Whether you're married or not, you're negotiating with your wife. How do you do this right? How do you fare? What is it you need, darling? What can I do with you? There is such a thing as fair fighting. I carry it on my refrigerator. Give the next person a chance to talk. Don't dominate it. See?
There's two little things that...
Don't get me on America, I'll tell you that.
There are two little things that I want to ask you, and then I'm going to ask if there's anything else you would like to talk about. But one is, you mentioned earlier that you had an interest in thoroughbred racing, and you got your box down at Gulfstream, and you didn't mention the fact that you bought horses, and maybe still...
Say that again?
Do you still own horses? You did own horses.
I still own a couple of horses.
Okay.
But even the bad ones eat as much as the good ones. So it's hard to make money in the racing business.
Well, I thought.
It's thrilling, though.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any idea what it is when you see your horse coming down and you say, go get him, come on now, you know, and it's such a thrill to see that.
Well, I noticed that you had one horse, and I just wanted to mention its name because I thought it was great, Amsterdam Avenue.
Yep, that's what street I lived on.
That's how I knew that you didn't live in the one in Brooklyn. When I saw the horse's name,
yep.
That told me right there. And he won, at least what I read.
Yeah, he did, and I had a few horses that won. Big Teddy K, one of the boys who was on the basketball team with me.
Oh.
I think he won 6 races.
And one of your horses was named Wonderful HOA.
Yeah, that's right. Didn't win a thing.
One other thing I wanted you to explain to me, it doesn't really have anything to do with Boca or the Jewish community, but it is part of your personal record. Tell me about when you how you sold your company, when you got out of the Mid-South Building Supply?
That was pretty interesting. I had wonderful employees. I was very privileged to have all these wonderful folks work with us. And at that age, I might have been 50, and I decided retirement was in order. I don't know why, but and several of the employees got a notion that I was going to sell the business. And is there any way we can buy it, Mr. Rales? And then I started to research what is known as the ESOP plan. And we were the first people in America to incorporate the ESOP plan because it was during the period that the Soviet Union was getting very strong under communism. And in America, we wanted to do something for people who could own their own business and make it flourish. And I said to this employee, yes, that's true, I am going to sell the business. And, well, he said, we worked very hard and we made you rich. I said, indeed you did. And I feel very respectful for all of you. So let me see what I can work out. And I went to the ESOP plan. Employees, something to confront the Soviet Union by doing things for your working people. And I sold them maybe, at the point, I think it was somewhere around $10 million. I sold them the business, and they said, how are we going to pay for this? We don't have any money. I said, that's true. But the other part is true also, that you made me rich. So I'm going to sign a note for you people for $10 million. And you people are going to pay the bank off. Well, the interesting concept with that I learned from that, not only did they pay it off, I got them a 10-year loan, but while they were working with me, they said, you know, Mr. Rales, we work 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. We need some more help. And I said, if you need some more help, tell me and we'll talk it over and see. They always needed more help. No matter the bookkeepers, everybody needed more help. Now, when they bought the business under the ESOP plan, they owned the business, all the employees. In the end result, the truck driver became worth $250,000, and so on down the line as it went. But when an employee left, they wouldn't hire another employee because he would get a piece of their action now, and they wanted it all. So it was wonderful to watch that operate and see how they did that. Now, instead of paying that off in 10 years, they paid it off in 3.5 years.
Wow.
Okay? To this day, I go into Mid-South, whichever branch, we kiss each other, and the guy says, never in my wildest dream did I ever think I'd have this money. Okay? I had my kids' education, everything was, at any rate, worked out fine.
Well, you have certainly made many, many, many people's lives better in so many ways, in so many places. And we're very glad that you're living here in Boca, because you're really making an impact here too. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to say or talk about?
Well, politically, I got involved in some degrees in Washington because I lived all around those folks, and some of them were very nice and very conscious of trying to do the right thing for America. And right in your county, I got a nice story to tell you. Tim Mahoney is a congressman from your area, Palm Beach and in that area. Tim Mahoney was running as an opponent 2 years ago against a fellow who was a 10-to-1 favorite to beat this new guy who never was in politics, Tim Mahoney. And the Democratic Party said, why don't you run and we'll try to do what we can to back you. My very good friend from up in Washington called me and said he's going to be down to see Tim Mahoney. And would I go to meet with Tim Mahoney? And I said, yes, I would. And we went down and we met with Tim Mahoney. And Tim Mahoney was running against Foley.
Mark Foley.
Yeah, at any rate, Foley, and Mahoney's telling me I'm a 10-to-1 underdog, and I can't know how win it. And like I gave these two gentlemen a silver dollar, I gave that to Mahoney. And I said, you rub this the right way, and you're going to be elected to Congress. Well, the next day, the whole thing broke loose on Foley and what he did with the children in Washington, and Mahoney was elected. He called me just the other day when we're going to have lunch together, and he was elected. He cherishes that silver dollar. Never got rid of it. And I could tell you lots of nice stories about silver dollars that I had the privilege to give to people. And they handled it the right way, and many of them had a lot of luck with it, see? A lot of luck with it.
Well, it's faith, isn't it? When you have faith.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. People have faith in different things, but
No
faith is
question
very
about
powerful.
that. No question about it. I'll meet people today, and I've forgotten I've given it to them. And they remind me. I was in Washington. I stopped at Starbucks for coffee one day, and a fellow says, don't you remember me? I said, forgive me, I haven't been back for a while. He said, you gave my son a silver dollar. That guy has been lucky ever since he's gotten it. Well, they remember, see? And it's a privilege. I like doing that, and I like to keep people happy. And those that are unhappy, I try to turn around, see?
I want to ask you one question that is a painful subject, and I don't mean to end on a sad note. Then you don't, of course, have to answer it if you don't want to, but I know your wife meant an awful lot to you, and even though you knew you were going to lose her for a long time before it actually happened, what kept you together? Because
Faith is one, but we both knew she was dying. You know. The best I can relate to you is that we were in bed together, and I said, Ruth, one of us is going to go before the other. Whoever it's going to be is going to be. So you wait on a star if it's you, and I'll come and get you. But I want you to understand one thing, that if I go up there and find you, which I expect I will, I don't want a house, I want a condo. Well, like you left, she left, and a couple hours later she passed away.
oh my,
See?
so
But
it is a happy ending.
she was a wonderful lady who was very dedicated, fiercely dedicated to her children. And didn't take any guff from them. But Many a time they were big 6-footers, still are. They'd hold her head and she'd be swinging up.
I asked you before, you told me what you thought, well, we talked about what your boys learned from you. What would you say that was their greatest gift from their mother, that they received from their mother?
Kind, she was considerate, very charitable, dedicated, as I say, to her children, took care of, worked while I worked, helped me through the years, very correct in most everything she did and said, because she only wanted the right thing. There were various people have various things that they like. My wife, jewelry was not one of them. We were invited to every embassy in Washington without fail, and that was not one of her interests or mine. We never went to them. Occasionally, we had one embassy or two embassies we'd go to. But the everyday person was what she was concerned with, and fiercely concerned with her children, till the day she passed. Only about her children, that's all she wanted to do, and do the right thing. And I learned a lot from her. Compassion, how to be gentle, how to do things in a prudent and proper manner for the best interest of everyone. I don't live by myself. I live in a country that allowed me to come in, be born here, how fortunate that was. And in all my travels, everybody wants to come to America. Everyone wants to, up until recently, everyone wanted to emulate the American way of life. The bourgeoisie, maybe, in these countries we would go into and show them how to produce their products and how to make more out of their products and how to make their country a little more wealthy, and we wanted to be paid for it, and profit was not a dirty word. The bourgeoisie, who saw that what can happen, kicked us out, and that's why you have in Switzerland the Idi Amin's got a $3 billion account. Marcos from Philippines has a $7 billion account before he died in Switzerland, and they kicked us out of those countries because those guys wanted to do what they wanted. But the Americans wanted, really, the true people throughout the world really respected the Americans up until recent years.
Well, I know you're very grateful to be an American, and so am I. And I want to tell you I'm very grateful that you agreed to do this talk together today. I've really enjoyed it, and I think a lot of good things will come out of it, just as good things have come out of so many other things you've done throughout your whole life.
I appreciate the privilege of being able to be with you.
Go ahead.
It was not a gated community, so I had heard about Boca Raton and that it was a nice place to live and come down and spend your winters here. My friend Patsy, who was in a home with me, was staying with me at the time. My wife was in Washington. And I said, let's take a ride up to Boca. and I inquired about some gated communities in Boca, and there was a place called the Sanctuary. And I went to see the realtor who handled the sanctuary, and she took me through, and it was just lovely. And I bought a home there. I gave them a deposit, unbeknown to my wife, okay? And I then called her and said, "You coming down next week? I saw a nice area, and they had some nice homes there. You'll come down and you'll be able to select a home for yourself, see what you like." And thank God, she picked the same home that I bought. So that worked out wonderfully well.
And you didn't have any, did you ask them, or did you have a conversation with anybody about whether you were going to have any problems living there?
No,
No,
never
didn't
got
come up.
into that.
Okay.
Never really got into that. Oh, you said something that's very interesting.
The realtor?
When I came up to Boca and I selected that home, I went to what was then the bank, before it became National Bank, the one on, which now is Bank of America on
Fidelity Federal?
no, which wasn't Fidelity Federal, no. It was, I forget the name of what it was. It's changed 3 or 4 times until it became Bank of America. It was National Bank. Bud Osborne was the president of it, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't remember. But there was a guy at that time, a gentleman, called Henry Fonda, who I went to see. And Henry Fonda was a very unusual, wonderful gentleman.
You mean Henry Fonda, the actor?
No.
No, another Henry Fonda.
Another Henry
Okay.
Fonda. Excuse me. Avery Fonda
Avery Fonda.
was his
Okay.
name. Avery Fonda. And I told Avery Fonda that I was considering moving up to Boca, and that I had interest in thoroughbred racing, and I was trying to get a box at the Gulfstream racetrack, and they told me they're all booked up and they have no boxes available. He said, "I can handle that for you, Mr. Rales. You bring your account in here, and I can handle this for you." And he set me up for a dinner for Ruth and I, and with Mary Ann, whose name was Dunn then. Mr. Dunn, who passed away, owned Gulfstream racetrack. Mary Ann Dunn and her son ran the track now, and when we had dinner together, she liked me, and I liked her, and she liked Ruth, and she said, "You needn't worry about a box. I'll handle that for you." And lo and behold, in the next few days, we had a nice box at Gulfstream racetrack. And she and we became friendly, okay? Shortly, I realized that Boca Raton was a very strong Christian community. There were no Jews in Boca Raton to speak of at the time.
Mm-hmm. And what year are we talking about here? 1970?
Yeah, it has to be right around there. 68 was right around there. Mm-hmm. And I moved in. And of course, I loved Boca from very inception of being here.
Would you tell me why? I mean, can you remember the first time you came to Boca?
Sure, beautiful.
Can you describe
It
it?
had the appearance that you could be in any other city, but when you got into Boca, you were in a special city.
Why?
Cleaner, nicer, better well-kept, beautiful hotel, place that you could dine. You went in there, treated elegantly, and super. The hotel was a very prominent part of making Boca what it was.
Do you remember the names of any other restaurants or businesses that were here way, way back then?
No, I really,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know if Renzo's was there then, or I don't remember a lot of them.
Just curious.
I don't know how long they were there, I'd
Yes,
say.
right.
But I fell in love with Boca, and so did my wife, and we liked it, but we weren't really accepted as such. Mary Ann Fowler was extremely nice and started to introduce us to people.
She was the one who was Mary Ann Dunn?
Mary Ann Dunn was the one who owned Gulfstream
Okay.
Racetrack,
And
and
who-
she lived in Royal Palm,
Okay.
okay? And that's where I got to know about Royal Palm, which we'll get to later.
Okay. But Mary Ann Fowler you just mentioned?
Her husband died, and she married a guy by the name of Joe Fowler.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
Joe Fowler was a great guy, really a wonderful guy, and the right-hand man to the insurance man who has Lynn's school, and Christine Lynn. And old man Lynn passed away.
Lynn University?
Yeah, Lynn University, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And I integrated a lot more with the people there who, I guess they felt comfortable with me, even though I was Jewish. In some of the things, we would go out together and do things, and I liked them very much. I thought that some of the things they did were not what I would approve of, but by and large, they were very nice people, and most of them lived in Royal Palm. Those were the fairly well-to-do or upper middle class who bought homes in Royal Palm in the early 50s,
Where is that located?
right here in Boca, right?
Is it still there?
Oh, yes, very much so. It's a very important part of what happened with me
Okay.
in Royal Palm. And they all lived there and probably bought those homes at that time for about $100,000, which was a lot of money, but they were the upper middle class people. And so was Mary Ann Dunn and Lynn and all of those folks that lived there. And they had a country club there. And I joined, not their country club, but I joined the club at the hotel. And they had a golf course and all those facilities, and really, really treated you elegantly.
You mean the Boca Raton Hotel?
Yes, absolutely elegant. Frida Faber, who was in charge of the cabanas, they were just kind, good people that their first responsibility was to make the consumer happy that was part of their club. I became friendly with Michael Glenny, who became the president of the club, of Boca Raton Hotel, I mean. And I got to know my way around a little bit. I found that the Boca Raton, Boca Hospital had no Jewish doctors. For whatever reason it was, there were no Jewish doctors there. No Jews on the board, none of those people involved. It was very much a Christian society, say. And as times evolved, I got involved with more and more people on the board of the hospital, and I got to know them. And without mentioning names, there was one board member, chairman, who was a very bad egg. No matter what, he wouldn't do anything, allow anything like that to happen, I say. And he soon was gone, and then they started to take in some Jewish doctors. And the doctors all heard about Boca Raton and wanted to be here too. It was a beautiful community. And they couldn't get into the hospital, so it was hard for them to move here. They were doctors, and very hard for them to move here. And finally, we were able to talk with the people and accept the guy like Norman Rales, and many of us who were better than Norman Rales but didn't have the opportunity to be accepted. And they started to take some of them into the hospital, of course, and so it went down the line, and 10 or 15 years later, Boca Raton became the fastest growing Jewish community percentage-wise in the United States of America. And they became the doctors, the lawyers, most of the Christian people were very happy if they could get a Jewish doctor to work with them or a Jewish lawyer, see, who they didn't really know at the time. And they accepted them, and so it went that it became integrated and really, really wonderful, except in Royal Palm, no Jews, so to speak, allowed, or unwritten law amongst them. And Gloria, who's with me today, was in the real estate business, and I saw Royal Palm as a beautiful community for the Jewish folks to move into and enjoy life in a prudent and proper manner. And there was a house for sale right on the intercoastal. Fellow had a boat, and I went over to see him. He told me how much he wanted, and I told him, well, today is Monday, I'll be back Friday, and I'll tell you yes or no. When I got back Friday to tell him yes, he said, it's not for sale anymore, Mr. Rales. And I looked at him, and he said, no, we decided we're not going to sell our home. And I understood what he was telling me, see? So I said, I'll tell you what I'll do with you, Mr. So-and-so. This is what you wanted. Now I'm going to double the price and give you twice as much if you're out of here by Friday, next Friday. He said, Mary, pack the things, we're on our way to the Bahamas. See? And I bought that house. I tore it down, might have bought it for $1 million, whatever it was. I tore it down, built another house on it for another $1 million, and sold it, I forget what it was, $3.5 million, to a Jewish family from England. That guy, Sugar, what was his first name? Anyway, Sugar was very similar to Sternweiser here in America with the Yankees. He owned the biggest soccer team in England. So he was the first Jewish family that I moved into Royal Palm. And then I did that 3 or 4 times over again. Had some problems with the board of directors there. Whenever I needed something done, it became difficult, but through the Avery Fonder and Marianne Fowler, and he's a pretty good Judas guy, and we were able to build that community, and there are many Jewish people in that community now, all of the best interests of Boca.
Did you ever run across Herb or George Brown?
Say that a little louder, please.
Did you ever run across Herb Brown or George Brown? The Browns were, well, Herb Brown was 60 years old in 1974, but their parents and their aunt and uncle came to Boca in 1931. They were the first Jews to live in Boca. And their son Herb, I know, was still around. He would have been 60 in 1974.
I probably know him from the Federation, which we'll get into later. But
well, I don't know if he ever was involved with that.
Not that I know of.
Okay, I was just curious.
No,
if you had
not
ever
that
run
I
across
know
them.
of. Yeah.
Okay, when you arrived in 1970, there was...
Might have been late 68, but let's say.
Okay. The only congregation here was Temple Bethel, which wasn't even called Temple Bethel, I think then, but by 2004 it became Florida's largest congregation. You're a member there?
No, I'm not. I'm not a member there. I continued my membership at the synagogue in Washington.
Okay.
Oh, now I knew Rabbi Singer very well, and I was spent time with him, but I was never a member of their congregation.
Have you always attended Reformed synagogues when you...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well that's... Okay, would you explain the concept of Jewish community, what that means?
Means that it's a group of people who are dedicated to making wherever they live or whatever they can do to make America and the community that they live in a better place. This all, this relates to the Federation.
And we'll get into that, but I wanted to just establish what that means.
The Jewish people, as I know, okay, and I try to rationalize all the way down the line, are generally very charitable, want to do things for the best interest of the community, no matter who they are or how they are. They want to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. So charity is really one of the basic...
That's one of our laws of Judaism.
Right.
See?
Well, I think you've already answered that. You experienced that Jewish community in your childhood, really. Wouldn't you say, at the orphanage?
Yes.
Yes. And were you also in what you would call Jewish community when you lived in Washington or Virginia or Pittsburgh or New York?
I was very involved in the Reformed Jewish synagogue.
So wherever you went, you became part of whatever the Jewish community was there, and all of those communities had certain things in common.
That's
right?
true.
Okay.
Correct.
And charity is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
What would you say would be the other elements?
Friendliness, sharing, working together. The whole concept of Judaism is to make this a better place for everybody to live in, whoever they are, black, white, whatever it might be. And I always thought, and all the friends I have, that's what we always wanted to do. It so happened in my case, I was able to do a little more than most, but starting with my groups.
Were you conscious of the fact that not everybody was like that? Not
Yeah,
everybody-
of course I was
Yeah.
conscious of that. And that goes through the Federation, through JARC, which, are you familiar with JARC?
I'll get to JARC, yes.
Yeah, okay, and then and the Ruth Rales Jewish Family Service. We service all the people, Delray, Boca Raton, part of Fort Lauderdale. We bring food to the elderly. We have wagons and trucks that deliver to them. We take them wherever they want to go to see the doctors or nurses. And that don't mean Jews only, they'll take anybody.
When you came here to Boca, you didn't find that same Jewish community, did you?
There was none.
Right.
There was no Jewish community to speak of.
But tell me how that changed.
Well, it was, Meyer Shine was he owned the Roney Plaza, and
I'm sorry, the what plaza?
the Roney Plaza Hotel. The Roney Plaza Hotel, going back into Miami, was where the Lana Turners, all the prominent movie stars, when they came to Florida, they would go to Roney Plaza. They didn't even know about Boca here. See, neither did I. See, it was just by accident that I found out about it and moved up here. And happier than I ever was moving here. At any rate, that was not in the community here. And how it started, there were a number of people, Bruce Warshaw, Rabbi Warshaw, and Dick Seaman, very prominent. He donated the land, and Abby Levine, and